Hello, hello, hello. Um, how are you doing today? Excited to do this again. I totally missed I don't know, Friday, and yesterday was a day off for me. But you know what? It's lunchtime, so we're gonna do some more Epic React workshop stuff. Today we're doing context, which is one of my favorite React APIs. I think it's great. Context has always been amazing. And so I'm really excited to do this one. I struggled a bit in the previous advanced hook work projects or workshop examples. So I'm excited to do this one. I think it should be fairly easy going, but you know, we'll see. So anyway, let's get to it. Without any further ado, we are in the advanced React hooks Epic React workshop, and we're just going to go through this exercise, work through these lessons, and see how it goes. So this is number 3. So exercise 3, we have the markdown file, which is what we're reading on the left, and the exercise right here. So let's go into it. Background. Sharing state between components is a common problem. The best solution for this is to lift your state blog post. This requires prop drilling, which is not a problem, but there are some times where prop drilling can cause a real pain. So this is actually really interesting already. Something that has been coming up with React Server components quite a bit is this idea that like context is dead. And the reason that is because like React Server components, like you can't pass context between a React Server component and a client component. So it kind of goes back to this, like you got to pass things as props to those components. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that context is dead, because context is really going to be important for coordinating those client side states. So any type of like complex UI that's going to share state, internal state, maybe like a dropdown or something like that, is always going to use some kind of context if it wants to have a kind of concise state sharing component API. So still super important to know. Just a side note though, is there's all this kind of like FUD going around context not being important anymore. So what's up? Anthony's here. Good to see you. Context is dead. That sounds wonderful, dude. Context is amazing. We're gonna learn how amazing it is today. Um, oh yeah, dude. Just do what you gotta do. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for saying hi. Um, All right, back to context. So yeah, so that's kind of my like thoughts on context and how they're going to be relevant moving forward. Moving between pages and client, like server and client, you won't be able to use it, but you will be able to. It will still be important for interactive componentry. So to avoid this pain, we can insert some state into a section of your React tree and then extract that state anywhere within the React tree without having to explicitly pass it everywhere. This feature is called context. In some ways, it's like a global variable, but it doesn't suffer from the same problems and maintainability nightmares of global variables, thanks to how the API works and to make the relationship explicit. Yeah, so Dan Abramov explained to me a little bit like lasers. So, where you have a global variable, it's kind of like this thing that's like exists everywhere. And this is a little bit more like pointed. So, like a laser, there's like a explicit like connection between these two, points. So you have the laser, you're pointing at this thing. So it's it's yeah, so like the difference between like a light bulb and a laser. Like a light bulb is like you put it on, lights everywhere. Laser is like you're focusing this light on this one point. So it's kind of like the difference of context and something global. So here's how we use context. You import React as React, and then we create a context using React to create context. This one's called foo context. And then we have some kind of component here, which is using the use context hook. So create context and use context to consume this context. And then we're assigning that value, whatever is in this. to foo, and then we say foo is foo. Now, there's a third piece to this. So we are creating it, we're consuming it, and then here we have to provide it. So foo context provider value, I am foo, and then this component right here now has a link. So we've linked this provider, the provider that we get from foo context is providing this value, and then this component using context can get that value like kind of as a parent, from its parent, as opposed to having to pass it in explicitly as props. So this is, I'm going to show you an example that I made for context. This is at reactcontext.com. So this is one of my favorite examples. So this is a shit example. And so the general idea is that context matters. And so when I was explaining to my 7-year-old, like why you could say shit at our house, but not at grandma's house, I came up with this little like example of context. So we have an expletive context, and we create context using default of shit. We have not talked about defaults yet, but we'll get to that. So some people don't like the word shit. Use a different word when in their company. It's good manners. So then we have a contextual exclamation. So this is a component that will take. Now this is pre-hooks, so this was like 16.4, so just before hooks. So I'm using the the consumer component for this, which uses a render prop, and we say "oh word." Now, because we've variabilized this exclamation word, we can use context to define it however we want. So. If we're at grandma's house, we're going to provide a context of poop, and then that will, do its thing. And then if we are, grandma's house. So this is a component that provides context and then renders the children. And so then when we are at grandma's house, we're in this grandma's house context, we can do a contextual exclamation, which is going to use poop instead of shit. So if you needed a language example to make it stick for you, that's one that you can use. So let's continue on. So foo display should appear anywhere in the render tree, and it will have access to the value which is passed by the foo context provider component. Am I only comfortable taking dumps at my grandma's house? Yep, we got to take a dump too instead of taking a shit. Yep. Hey, what's up? Good to see you again. Small Gaming, thanks for being here. Yes. So yeah, context could appear anywhere in the render tree, and it will have access to the value which is passed by foo context provider component. Note that as a first argument to create context, you can provide a default value which React will use in the event someone calls use context with your context when no value has been provided. So this we saw this in my example. Let's see. This code doesn't seem to oh yeah, foo display. Okay. In my example, we created a context with a default. So anytime there was not an explicit value provided, so like let's say this was not here, it will use shit as a default. But that's yeah. So like if we wanted to, if we put, in create context up here, we said, I am default, and then we didn't provide this value, it would say I am default. And then as soon as we provide this value, it says I am foo. So local overrides, basically. Okay, most of the time, I don't recommend using a default value because it's probably a mistake to try and use context outside of a provider. So in our exercise, I'll show you how to avoid that from happening. Keep in mind that while context makes sharing state easy, It's not the only solution to prop drilling pains, and it's not necessarily the best solution either. React's composition model is powerful and can be used to avoid issues from prop drilling as well. I learned more about this from Michael Jackson on Twitter. Yeah, and so like the idea here is that children is like a really powerful composition model. Specifically, like if you embrace children and you don't try to abstract every little component, you just let your components be big, and you know, there's a lot of power in just having all of your state in one object and just having some giant render function that imports a bunch of, you know, displaying components and going, you know, not extracting out every single component that you could possibly find. That is a really great way to avoid prop drilling, because you have the state right there. Instead of having to convert your state to props, it's just there for you. So, you know, more stuff to think about. But I'm a huge fan of big components. I like the first app that I ever made in React was, I think it was like a 15,000 line single React component just called like app. This was back in like, I don't know, like 2013 or 2014. And yeah, it was great. It was fine. There were some ergonomic things that kind of sucked. I think that had I known how to navigate code with my editor a little bit better, it would have been less painful. But like at the end of the day, it was kind of great to not deal in props at all. We just had our state and, you know, use that to render the UI. It was great. You know, is what it is. I'm a big fan of smaller components. You know, I love small components. Like I've worked in design systems for, like, most of my work was in design systems. And so I'm a huge fan of small components. Like, I think it's great. I think though that there's like this area where, you know, you're small, like, I guess for me, it's like, I want the most edge, like leaf components. You know, people use this metaphor all the time of like, you know, a tree and like the leaf components. I want those to be like as small as possible. But then as you get more into like application logic, I want those to be bigger, and I want to have to pass less props around via context or whatever. So like, you know, the user object, like, you know, so many components are going to need the user object. But if I just have this gigantic, you know, component, I can still use all my little components to compose these, you know, views, or like maybe I pass in that as props to a full view or whatnot. But, you know, I like keeping them small and big, small and big. Depends on where. Okay, so we're putting everything in one file to keep things simple, but I've labeled things a bit so, exercise. I've labeled things a bit so you know that typically your context provider will be placed in a different file and expose the provider component itself, as well as a custom hook to access the context value. We're going to take the count component that we had before and separate the button from the count display. We need to access both the count state as well as the set count updater in the different component, which live in different parts of the tree. Normally, lifting state up would be the way to solve this trivial problem, but this is a contrived example, so you can focus on learning how to use context. Your job is to fill the count provider function component so that the app works and the tests pass. Okay, so this one has tests. I am curious how best to run those tests. I think that in the course, maybe, actually here, let's see if there's a README at the root. Setup. If you want to commit input, okay. After you made, okay. running the tests. Okay, so if we run npm test, this will start jest in watch mode, read the output and play around. The tests are there to help you reach the final version. However, sometimes you can accomplish the task and the tests still fail if you implement things differently than I do in my solutions. So don't look at them as a complete authority. Okay, so it doesn't look like there is a way to run this like a specific set of tests besides just whatever Jest provides, which I would have to Google. So maybe it's worth it. Let's see. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to make a new one of these. Where is it? Where's the button that makes a new terminal? Oh, right here. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna run npm test and see what that does. Maybe the output is fine. Okay, cool. So I forgot, because it's just, it's gonna wait for us to make a change. So let's see. So press A to run all the tests. Okay, so we run all the tests, and then now we should be able to make some changes. Seems like test 3 shouldn't have passed theoretically. So let's let's open this up. So tests, we're looking at 3. Oh no, we want the test to stay passing while we change the code. Got it. Okay. So create a context here with React create context. Okay. So I guess we use const in these, right? Const, let's see, count context equals react.create context. And then we're not going to use the default because that's the way that, they're showing us right now. Okay, so that's not going to change the tests at all. Create a count provider component here that does this. It's going to get state and set count update, get the count state and set count updater with React use state. Okay, so const count set count equals react.use state, and then we'll give this a default of 0, I guess. Okay. Now this needs to be inside this function for now. Let's see, display count equals 0. Get the count from context with, okay. App count. Okay, cool. So that's going to break this test, I'm pretty sure. No, it doesn't. Interesting. Okay. I feel like it should, right? We changed the value of count, but maybe it's not looking for that. Oh, because, yeah, maybe it's not looking for a default state. Okay. Create count provider here does this. Get the, create a value array with count and set count. Oh yeah, we're making a count provider component. Provider equal, oh wait, function count provider. Okay, so that's going to return something. And then this is where this goes. So we have a count and count provider. We've done that. Create a value array with count and set count. Okay, return your context provider with the value assigned to the array and forward all the other props. So return the context provider. So this will be count context dot provider. And then this is a component that comes along with, you know, when we create context. Inside of this is, what is it? Provider and consumer is the way that those look. So we are going to do this, and because this is a component, we're going to take props, and we will spread all those props along. Yes. And then also you set our value to of count. Now, so I'll just talk through this. So I'm not sure exactly how they want us to return this yet, but let's see what we have. So return a context provider with the value assigned to that array and forward all the other props. More specifically, we need the children prop forwarded to the context. Okay, yeah. So we really need children here. And then, okay, let's start with, so value array with count and set count. Okay, cool. So we did it the way that's being asked of us right now. Okay, so here we'll use const count equals react.use context of, okay, and then here we don't use a consumer, we just give it the count context. So we just give it that full context, and let's see. So where are we now? So we should at this point have a count. We should see the current count is 0 because we'd set 0 up here. And so we need to provide this as context. Okay. So here, const set count, and are we using count? We're not. So we don't need to take that. React.use context of count context. Cannot redeclare block scope. Okay, so set count. So we don't need this anymore. We don't have to create that function. We'll take set count, increment here. Okay, cool, perfect. Ooh, that's a big one. So when done with this exercise, here's one of my favorite. Get my face out of the way. One of my favorite uses of the context API. I employ it for my job, which has an enterprise level site. Okay, cool. I'll have to check that out. I will grab that link in just a second. Actually, if it's easy enough, I might do it now. I can't really get text out of here really easily. Okay, we'll check it out later. State management with React hooked in context API, 10 lines of code. Okay, let's do that. Medium, simply state management. Okay, we can try that. So medium state. Oh, simply state management React context. Let's see. Looks like this should be it, I think. Yeah. Okay, published by Simply. Okay, so React Context API. So theme providers, yes. Okay, so for providing themes. Yeah, this right here, I don't know if this is what you were referring to, but this right here is one of my favorites. Putting reducers on context is really great. It's like a 1-2 punch, wombo combo. Okay, state management and 10 lines of code. Maybe this is the one that you were talking about. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so let's see. So we're taking create context, use context, and use reducer. We're exporting a let's see, a state context, which is creating a context. And so that's going to export the full context, which includes both consumer and provider, which we don't need the consumers anymore. Yeah, it's like super, the reducer context pattern is like just super great. It's really great. Let's see. Yeah, and so then this one, so the state provider is going to take some reducer, and so this part right here makes it fully customizable. So you could pass in any reducer, and it would allow you to like you just have like a state management system, and so you can provide a reducer, you can provide different reducers, and use the same componentry, and everything will still work. You get an initial state, and then the children. The children get passed through directly, and then we use the state provider and just use a use reducer with the reducer and the initial state. And like this is 10 lines of code. You can do whatever as long as you know how to write a reducer. And then let's see, what's this? Use set value. Oh, gotcha. Okay, so then it looks like they're providing one extra thing, which is a function. This is interesting. Okay, cool. This is a function that, or sorry, a hook that gives you the use context of this state context. Use state value. Okay, gotcha. It's interesting. I guess I would have expected maybe one more thing, which is another function that would allow you to update the context. If you have a convenience function like this, having another one that's like set context would be really nice as well. Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's nice to kind of it is nice to abstract over these sometimes, because otherwise you'd have to like in this case you could just import what is it, the state provider. You could even have this be like the export default or something like that, which would be really cool. And then if you're doing that, you don't really want to have to like then pull out like the context and then pull out use context yourself. Like you kind of just want to like pull things out, if it's this generic, right? I don't know. Yeah, totally. So like what is it? Global state and regional state. Regional state. I like that. Small set of SPA routes and even complicate. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then the state context there is provided only if you want to access it, access with class components. Otherwise, you use the hook for functional components. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, cool. Let's carry on. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. But yeah, that example is sick. I love it. Okay, where were we? Okay, so we have our set count function. Okay, so now we need to wrap these in context. So here we use count context dot provide. Oh no, wait, we created a provider. Count provider. There we go. Okay, so we have our count provider. We are providing that. And then I can't remember if we set a default. We did set a default. Okay, of 0. Okay. Sometimes these take a really long time to update. I'm not really sure why. Okay, cool. So this seems to be working. These tests don't seem to be working though, but this is working. So that's all that matters. Yeah, of course. I always love. I mean, these are all just about like learning, so it's really kind of fun to see. Like, I always enjoy seeing what has hooked into other people's minds. It's like a valuable thing. So thank you for sharing. Okay, so we have this. This seems to work, so no problem. So I don't know about these tests, but it works. So let's hooray for us. Okay, so extra credit. Let's see what this extra credit is about. So, create a consumer hook. Imagine what would happen if someone tried to consume your context value without using your context provider. For example, as mentioned above, when discussing the default value. So, foo. Okay. If you don't provide a default context value, that would render foo is nothing. Foo is This is because the context value would be undefined. In real world scenarios, having an unexpected undefined value can result in errors that can be difficult to debug. In this extra credit, you need to create a custom hook that I can use like this. Okay, so we want to use count. Okay, so this is, yeah, so use count. This is actually almost identical to what we just saw. And if you change the app to this, so display count. Interesting. Okay, so in the extra credit, you need to create a custom hook that I can use like this. Okay, so I understand that part. And if you change the app to look like, oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, so we're not going to provide this anymore at the app level. We're going to consume it. We're going to wrap our components in it, I think. That's my understanding. It should throw an error indicating that use count may only be used from within a child of a okay. Okay, so I guess we're supposed to end in an error state. Okay, that's fine. Let's see. So what do we have so far? We need to create a use count. So that'll be a hook. Use count. Um, let's see. This will use context. So const count set count equals react dot use context of count context, like so. I think that's how we have it. So use count's going to look like that, and then we're going to return count and set count in array. Now this is like kind of cumbersome. I think that's stupid. So we'll just say count context. I mean, it really doesn't matter what what you name it in this case, but yeah, that's what it's going to be. Okay, so use count. We don't need to take any arguments, I don't think, because this is just using the count. So okay, cool. Let's do that. So here we'll say use count. And here we'll do the same. I don't know how long I have to wait for this thing to show up. So far, I've only moved the code, I think. I've only moved it. So nothing should have broken yet because I still have this count provider. Okay, let's look at the errors. What is it complaining about? So the above error occurred in the counter. So right here, counter count provider. Okay, cool. So we're getting the error that we want to have. Use count. Oh, duh. Oh my gosh. Getting too clever with how I'm editing the code. Yeah, clearly that's not going to work. There is no React use count. Okay, got it. Okay. Okay, so this is not updating. Let's see why. Set count is not defined. Okay, cool. We're back in business. Okay, so we're back in business, but now we're using use count, which we'd kind of like seen used as an example before. I think I might even be able to just return this, right? Yeah, I think so. Cool. Okay, so we have a function that just kind of like returns that specific context for count, which is great. Now, we're supposed to take this out, which should give us the error, which is, let's see, use count is not a function or its return value is not iterable. Okay. Use count may only be used from within a child account provider. Okay. Should throw an error indicate. Okay. Yes. So I guess that's what we want. Okay. So try the last exercise over again with a bit more of a complex practical example. That's right. We're back to Pokemon Info app. This time, it has caching in place, which is cool. So if you enter the same Pokemon information, it's cached so it loads instantaneously. However, we have a requirement that we want to list all the cached Pokemon. My brain was catching on cached or catched. Cached Pokemon in another part of the app. So we're going to use context to store the cache. This way, both parts of the app which need access to the Pokemon cache will have access. Because this is hard to describe in words and because it's completely separate example, there's a starting point for you in extra credit 2, in 3 extra 2. Okay, so this is our starting point. Whoa. Okay, lot of code, but I think that we're kind of familiar with it. So other notes, context also has the unique ability to be scoped to a specific action of the React component tree. A common mistake of context in generally any application state is to make it globally available anywhere in your application when it's actually only needed to be available in a part of your app, like a single page. Keeping a context value scoped to the area that it most has that it needs that needs it most has improved performance and maintainability characteristics. Okay, cool. Okay, so use context caching response data in context. 100% caching in context provider exercise. You can edit this here and look at the isolated page, or you can copy paste this into the regular example. Let's copy and paste this since we already have this page running. Save this here. Okay, cool. So we have this little Pokemon app, and then let's get back to our instructions. You can edit this. Okay, we did that. Okay, so create a Pokemon context, cache context, sorry. So const Pokemon cache context equals react.use context. Okay, and then we don't know if we need a default yet, so Gonna leave it like that. It's clear, but its value is never used. Was use context cannot be called. Oh, sorry. Create context. Okay, create context. Okay, now create a Pokemon cache provider. Const Pokemon cache provider. Okay. Not like that. Function. Okay, and then we're going to, let's see, const Pokemon, and then set Pokemon equals react dot use context. Actually, let's do this, Pokemon context, and then we'll return a component. So we use the Pokemon cache context dot provider. And then in this case, I'm actually just going to take children since that's all we really care about. We're not going to be using any of the other props. And then the value will be this full Pokemon context. I guess I should probably, just for consistency, I should probably call this the Pokemon cache context. Okay. So we have a Pokemon cache context provider, and I think they got everything wired up that we need. Okay, so we did that. Use reducer with a Pokemon cache reducer in your Pokemon cache provider. You can grab that one that's in Pokemon info. Grab the one that's in Pokemon info. Okay, is this here or is it elsewhere? Pokemon info. Oh, here it is. Okay, cool. So we have this use reducer, Pokemon cache reducer. Where's that defined? Okay, cool. So we have the Pokemon cache reducer. Return your context provider with the value assigned to what you get back from use reducer. So value, okay. Use reducer with the Pokemon cache context in your cache provider. Okay, so use reducer with the Pokemon cache reducer. Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, so let's see, const equals react dot use reducer with the Pokemon cache reducer. Okay, so we're not going to use that, sorry. Obviously, we're not consuming context inside of this. That was my bad. Okay. Okay, use reducer with the Pokemon cache reducer. Return your context provider with the value assigned to what you get back. Okay, so value is Pokemon cache so signature for this is, what is it? The reducer initial state. I can't remember. Okay, so value dispatch. Now we're getting both of those by virtue of just taking this value and passing it along here. Make sure you forward the children prop. Yep. Okay, so we're destructuring that. So it looks a little bit different here. Okay, cool. Now remove the use reducer here or move it up to your Pokemon cache provider. Okay, so there's an object here. So why don't we just copy that? Okay. Get the cache and dispatch from context with Pokemon cache context. Okay, so this, we're gonna use this. So react.use context of Pokemon cache context. Okay, because we don't have one of those like kind of easy access functions yet. Okay. Now here we're using cache, Pokemon name, run, and set data. So what's it complaining about here? React hook use effect has missing dependencies. Dispatch, either include it or remove the dependencies array. Interesting. Okay. I assume that that was irritated before as well. Okay, so get the cache from context with Pokemon context. Okay, so const Pokemon. How do I name it here? Okay, so what is it using? Pokemon name. Okay, do we only have one? I need to see how it's putting these in there, but for now, I think we should be able to just grab like that. React.use context, Pokemon cache context. So, oh, I guess we'll just do this. Okay, so previous Pokemon, and then saying the object keys of the cache, so it's kind of like rendering over them. Oh, what's in the cache? Okay, so we're storing a bunch of Pokemon in the cache. Now, I'm a little concerned because I don't think that should have broken this because, oh, we need to provide the context is why. Wrap this in the Pokemon cache provider. So that previous Pokemon and Pokemon info components have access. Okay. Okay, so we wrote it in we wrote it in Pokemon cache provider. We're still getting an error. So what? Oh, nope, just took forever to load. So we got Pikachu. So previous Pokemon. Okay, cool. We have Mew. Okay, so that gets added to our cache. Bulbasaur. Did I spell that right? Yes, I did. Huzzah. U2. Is that how you spell it? No. Sorry. And so then, yeah, so then we can get these and they're in that context cache, which makes them show up immediately, which is awesome. Sick. Okay, cool. That was simple enough. Okay, I think we got it. So that was extra credit number 2, right? Caching and context provider. What time is it? I don't remember where to start. Start right at 3? Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome. That means we can go to the next. We did it. Congratulations to us. Use layout effect, auto scrolling text area. Now this is going to be exciting. Winning. We did it. You and me, Smola Gaming. Cheers. Okay. So okay, so use layout effects. Let's get this example up. VS Code is extremely pissed. Oh. Accidentally changed my keyboard layout. That'll do it. Okay, so number 4, auto scrolling text area. From where did I get what? Like these workshops. They are on. Let's see. Hopefully, I'm answering the right question, but if not, let me know. So if you go to Kent C. Dodds, github.com/CuntCDodds. And then I think if you searched for workshop, maybe. Oh no, you can't. You look for React. So if you look for like React Dash, you'll be able to see some of these. So there's like React Fundamentals is one of the courses, React Hooks, Advanced React Hooks, React Suspense, Advanced React Patterns. So all those are like course workshops. Hopefully that answers the question. But if not, just hit me up again. Okay, cool. So let's go. Use layout effect, auto scrolling. Okay. Background. There are 2 ways to tell React to run side effects after it renders. Use effect and use layout effect. The difference about these is subtle. They have the exact same API, but significant. 99% of the time, use effect is what you want, but sometimes 1% of the time, use layout effect can improve your user experience. To learn about the difference, read use effect versus use layout effect. And check out the hook flow diagram as well. There's the hook flow diagram. I still don't totally understand it, but it is what it is. Okay, exercise production. Okay, so note. So this is another React 18 example that it changed a little bit. So we should keep that in mind. I guess I should add a note. Oh, yeah. Of course, yeah. Glad that you could find them. They are part of the epicreact.dev course, but all of these parts are open source. So we're just kind of going through the open source parts of it. To do, so we have a React 18 example that we need to adjust. Okay, so no, React 18 has smoothed out the differences in the UX user experience between use effect and use layouts effect. That said, the simple rule described still applies. There's no exercise for this one because basically you just need to replace use effect with use layout effect and you're good. So you pretty much just need to experiment with things a bit. Before you do that though, compare the finished example with the exercise and remove messages, add remove messages, and you'll find that there's a janky experience with the exercise version because we're using use effect. And there's a gap between the time that the DOM is visually updated and our code runs. Here's the simple rule for when you should use layout effect. If you are making observable changes to the DOM, then it should happen in use layout effect. Otherwise, use effect. Okay, so we're going to add a message. Thank you for the like. Appreciate it. Add. Okay, so we have a bunch of messages here. remove message, remove message, remove message. Okay, let me open the console. Let's refresh this and see if there's anything here. So we add a message, add a message, add a message, remove a message, remove a message. Okay, cool. And so then in this example, we're supposed to replace this with, oops, use layout effect. Okay, so let's try that. I'm legit not seeing a difference. So let's look at the elements pane here. Let's see if we can get this stuff in this iframe, this log, and see what happens. So we add a message. Okay, and then we're going to remove a message. Okay. Okay, so maybe like they're showing up here, but then not updating there really fast. So let's try that again. Layout effect. Okay. Oops. Okay. Use effect one more time. I legitimately cannot tell the difference. Okay. Before you do, though, compare the finished example with the exercise. Add remove messages, and you'll find that there's a janky experience with the exercise version because you're using use effect. And there's a gap between the time that the DOM is visually updated and our code runs. Interesting. Maybe, but it's slight. Maybe my Mac is too fast. Oh, cool. Thanks for the that's a big one. Yes, thank you for the link on that one. Use layout effect versus, yeah, actually, you know what? Let's check that out. Let's see, use layout effect versus. Okay, let's just go through this. So both of these can be used to do basically the same thing, but they have slightly different use cases. So here are some rules for you to consider when deciding the React hooks. Okay, 99% of the time. The one catch is that it runs after React renders your component. So after React renders your component, and ensures that your effect callback does not block browser painting. This differs from the behavior in the class components where component did mount and component did update run synchronously after rendering. It's more important it's more performant this way, and most of the time is what you want. However, if your effect is mutating the DOM via the DOM node ref, so if we're using a ref to like actually change something DOM, and the DOM mutation will change the appearance of the DOM node between the time that it is rendered and your effect mutates it, then you don't want to use effect. You want to use layout effect. Otherwise, the user could see a flicker when the DOM mutations take effect. This is pretty much the only time you want to avoid use effect and use layout effect. Okay, got it. So run synchronously immediately after React has performed all DOM mutations. This can be useful if you need to make DOM mutations. Okay, got it. Summary, use layout effect if you need to mutate the DOM and or need to perform measurements. Use layout if you don't need to interact with the DOM. Okay, cool. So just very specific use case. Like only do it if you are like using a ref and actually changing something in the DOM. Okay. It was like really hard to see though, unfortunately. So is what it is. Yeah, I think. Yeah, the difference is imperceptible in real time from the docs. The signature is identical. The use effect. Yep. Okay. Cool. Yes. Thank you. Here being that use layout effect blocks browser paint. Yeah, that's a great distinction. Yes. So it's like it's always going to be blocking, and so that's why you don't want to use it. But in those cases that you need to coordinate those DOM updates, it's what we got. Okay, cool. Well, that was a fast, easy one. So use imperative handle. This one might be fast as well. Wow, we're cruising along. We might actually make it through this module. It's been taking me a long time, which I'm fine with. Learning a ton each time. So what do we got here? Okay, so use imperative handle, scroll to top and bottom. When we had class components, we could do stuff like this. Class my input extends React component. Man, it's always so wild to see class component code. Input ref, React create ref, focus input, this dot input ref dot current dot focus. Okay, cool. Yep. Create ref, focus input. This dot my input ref, focus input, and then we would provide the input ref here, and so then it would focus on that input. So like imperatively. The key I want to point out in this example here is that bit above that says my input ref this dot input ref. What this does is give you access to the component instance. With function components, there is no component instance, so it won't work. So we use ref, we say input ref.current focus. Where do I put the focus input method? So here we had a place that we could put it. Okay. You can actually get an error if you try to pass a ref prop to a function component. So how do you solve this? Well, React has had this feature called forward ref for quite a while. So we could do that. So React forward ref function my inputs. Let's see, function my input. So this is okay. So this is named inside to avoid like the double naming. So React forward ref to this component definition, props and ref, which is that second argument. Const input ref equals React use ref current. Ref.current is a function, focus input ref.current focus. Wow, that's some code there. Okay. Fun. Okay, this actually works. However, there are some edge case bugs with this approach when applied to React's future concurrent mode suspense feature. Also, it doesn't support callback refs. So instead, we'll use the use imperative handle hook to do this. Okay, So we're still using the forward ref. We're still defining our component inside of that forward ref definition, taking the ref, const input ref equals use ref. So we're creating an input ref. React use imperative handle, taking the reference, the passed in reference, providing it as the first argument. And then what do we have here? Okay, and then we have this object that we have a function that returns an object like we had for current right there. I've actually never used this, so this is really interesting. So input ref equals input ref. Okay. This allows us to expose imperative methods to developers who pass our ref prop to our component, which can be useful when we have something that needs to happen and it's hard to deal with declaratively. Imperative methods. Okay, cool. Most of the time, you should not need use imperative handle. Before you reach for it, really ask yourself whether there's any other way to accomplish what you're trying to do. Imperative code can sometimes be really hard to follow, and it's much better to make your APIs declarative if possible. For more information on that, read imperative versus declarative. Okay, exercise. For this exercise, we're going to use the simulated chat from the last exercise, except we've added a scroll to top and scroll to bottom buttons. Your job is to expose the imperative methods, scroll to top and scroll to bottom, on a ref so the parent component can call these directly. Okay. Let's try it. This will be interesting. Never done this before. Okay, so we have this. Okay, cool. Imperative handle, scroll to top. Okay. So we're gonna wrap this in React forward ref and accept ref as a second argument. Okay. So we're gonna take ref as our second argument. React dot forward ref. We can wrap this whole thing up like that. Okay, step one, done. I think, yes. You're gonna want this as part of your imperative method. Let's see, function, scroll to top. Okay. Container ref dot current, scroll to scroll top 0. Part of your imperative methods. Okay. Call use imperative handle here with your ref and callback function that returns an object with scroll to top and scroll to bottom. Okay, so call the use imperative method here. Okay, so React dot use imperative handle. We're going to pass it the ref. We're going to use a function that creates an object. Oop, didn't do that right. There we go. Function that returns an object. Return focus. Oh no, wait. We are going to say scroll to top. And that'll be, let's see. Do we have a ref to whatever we're doing here? Container ref. Dot current dot focus. No. Hey, what's up? Arthur J. Good to see you, Arthur. Glad you're here. We're just going through the advanced React hooks and just specifically use imperative handle right now. So that's what we're doing. I've never done one of these, so it's a good time. Okay, and then okay, so I guess we can just here I can just do this, scroll to bottom, right? And then I'll just assign these in here, I think. I think. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because then we get that object back. And then it can call those methods. Okay, this allows us to expose. Okay, cool. And then what's the next assignment? So call the imperative handle here with your ref and your callback function that returns the object with scroll to top and scroll to bottom. Okay, and then does it tell me what to do after that? Okay, did scroll to top not work before? Or what was it? Scroll to top's the one that we implemented, right? Okay, refreshing. Obviously, I need to have the function implemented or else it's going to freak out. But if we don't do anything with it, what I do? Okay, console. Let's see. Reference error. Message display is not defined. Message display is not defined. Messages display. Okay. Okay, scroll to, okay, cool. Okay, did I screw that up somehow? I thought I needed to wrap that in. Oh, right. So this is now const messages display. Right. Okay. Whoop. Okay. Yep. Okay. Cool. Okay. There we go. Okay. So we don't have scroll to top. We do have scroll to bottom. Okay. So then when we do this, we should get scroll to top. Yes. Okay. Cool. Nice. Okay. Any questions about that? Awesome. Hey, thanks so much. Yeah, have fun. Yeah, any questions? I think I understand it. Like it's mostly just this pattern, and like what we're doing, if I understand correctly, is like we have a local ref to some type of input, and then we are allowing people to call specific functions for like on that ref. But these are all things that we have to implement. So we just actually, this is a really good example of that. Yeah. So it's like we've renamed these functions. So this becomes part of our component API that someone is able to kind of tackle these specific elements. Now, my understanding is that this would really only be important for components that are complex like this. Because if this was just a single component, we could attach a ref directly to that and we wouldn't have to forward ref. I'm not sure though. So let me know. Let me know if you have experienced otherwise. Okay, exercise. Okay, cool. We did the exercise. Great. Boom. Done. Congratulations to us. We did it. Okay, here we go. Moving along. Yeah, that means that next I'll be able to go into whatever the next one is. Might be building an app or something like that. Oh no, suspense. That's what it is. Suspense. Okay, number 6. Okay, coming along. Dev tools before and after. I think these are images. Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is use debug value, use media. This actually occurs to me that there's a new hook, I think. Let's go to react.dev. Use ID. Let's see. Been a React dev since before hooks, worked on numerous projects, and never once have I needed use imperative handle. Yeah, I haven't either. Um, yeah, I haven't either. So at least, at least that's two of us. Okay, let's see. Learn, no, we want the references. Okay, so we have use callback, use context, use debug value, use deferred value. Okay, so that's one of the new suspense ones. Use effect, use ID. Okay, so we're gonna need a lesson for use ID. And then I guess maybe even some of these other ones. So what was that? Use deferred value. Oh wow, use insertion effect. This is interesting. Use ref, use state, use sync. I don't think that we need to talk about this one, but maybe we do. Because that one's really like a framework level library. Like this is what, tools like MobX and Redux have to use under the hood. Actually, let me see what they have to say about that. Okay, and then use transition. I have some examples of those on my YouTube channel. I'll probably just go through those and kind of see what we need to do. So use transition. Oh wait, not use sync external store. React hook that lets you subscribe to an external store. Cool. Actually, we might need some on this. Read a value from an external data store. It returns a snapshot of the data in the store parameters. Returns caveats. The store snapshot returned by get snapshot must be immutable. If the underlying store has mutable data, return a new immutable snapshot if the data is changed. Okay. If different subscribe function is passed during re-render, React will resubscribe. Okay. Okay, so they do have a good example here. So maybe we'll add those ones to the advanced hooks. Seems to make sense. Okay, cool. Okay, so where was I? Oh yeah, use ID. I wanted to capture some of these new things that we need to use. But yeah, this is super cool. I love this, especially for accessibility stuff. This is so cool to just be able to like generate an ID. And then I think, the reason that it took so long to develop is because it needed to be able to work kind of with some of the server rendered stuff. Do not call use ID to generate calls in a list, IDs in a list. Okay, cool. Well, we should probably add those to make this a more robust course, but we'll get to that. Okay, so background. The React DevTools browser extensions is a must-have for any React developer. When you start writing custom hooks, it can be useful to give them a special label. This is especially useful to differentiate different usages of the same hook in a given component. This is where use debug value comes in. You use it in a custom hook and you call it like so. Okay, so we have use count, which we've seen previously. We have initial count of 0, step of 1, which are customizable values in this object. Okay. Yes, that's interesting. So the values are default if you, interesting. confused by this. Let's see. So React, use debug value. So initial count and step. So this is going to debug these values. I'm noting that it's put inside of an object, which is kind of interesting. Const, count, set count, React, use state, initial count. Okay, so we have our count, const, increment. So we have an updater call, and then we return the count and the increment. Okay, so now when people use the use count hook, they'll see the initial count and step value for that particular hook. Okay, so let's see if it logged anything for, okay, so there's nothing in this one. Let me refresh, get those errors out of there. Exercise. Note, useDebug values will not show in production because the production build of useDebug value does nothing. In this exercise, we have a custom useMedia hook, which uses the window match media to determine whether the user agent satisfies a given media query. In our box component, we're using three times to, in our box component, we're using it 3 times to determine whether the screen is big, medium, or small, and we change the color of the box based on that. Now, take a look at the PNG files associated with this exercise. You'll notice that the before doesn't give any useful information for you to know which hook recorded references which hook. In the after version, you'll see a really nice label associated with each hook, which makes it obvious which is which. Okay. So before media hooks, media twirl down, after hooks, media false, true, false. Okay. If you don't have the browser extension installed, install it now and open React tab in the React DevTools. Select the box component in the React tree. Your job is to use debug value to provide a nice label. Note, your hooks may look a tiny bit different from the screenshot thanks to the fact that you're using stop runaway React effects. Just focus on the label. That should be the same. Okay. So what do we have here? I don't think I have the React DevTools on this particular user. So let's install those real quick. Add to Chrome. Man, over 4 million users. That's wild. Truly, truly wild. Okay, no, I'm not worried about turning syncing on. Okay, so that page doesn't use React, so it's not going to show there. But if I refresh this, yes, okay, cool. Let's pin this so we can see it. But it doesn't really matter because I think that what we're looking for is these tabs, the components, and then the profiler. Okay, so if we open that again, are we seeing this anywhere? Okay, so I guess we got to move. Okay, so it goes from red to yellow. So that's something that we're seeing. Let me look for red real quick. Okay, cool. So, so is big, is medium, is small. If it's big, green. If it's medium, yellow. If it's small, red. Okay, cool. Okay, let's see. Call React use debug value here. Okay, no problem. React.use debug value. Okay, and then I remember we were supposed to give it an object. Here's the formatted label. Okay, so like that. Okay, here's the formatted label. Interesting. Add listener has been deprecated. Interesting. Okay. So here's the formatted label. Okay, so what do we want here? Well, okay, so initial count and step. So we need to put it in an object though. So confused. Okay. When confused, go to the docs. So react.dev reference use debug value. Okay, so we give it the value and the format. Okay, so it doesn't have to be an object like I was seeing there. So call use debug value at the top level of a custom hook. This is use media as a custom hook to display a readable debug value. Is online. Okay, online or offline. Okay, cool. So what do we have here? So use effect. Okay. Now, okay, so we're going to take this. Looks like it's escaping those backticks, so we should be fine. Okay. Use debug value in a custom hook. Let's open this up. Oh my gosh. There's so much, too much other media query stuff happening. Okay. Okay, we're seeing that change, but I'm not sure where we're supposed to be seeing this. Okay. Use React, use debug value. Okay, I think I'm doing it right. See the initial, okay, step, okay. Exercise. In this exercise, we have a custom use media, window match media. Now take a look at the, okay. Open the React tab in the dev tools. Okay, there's not a React tab. Okay, if you don't have the browser extension installed, install it now and open the React tab in the dev tools. Select box component in the React tree. I don't see a box component. Error boundary. Select the box component in the React tree. Oh, maybe I should open up this in an isolated one. Oh, okay. Yeah. Open example in isolated page to see the box component, and the tab is components, not React. Okay. Okay, so we have that. We see it. Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. So the values are here. That's super interesting. Refresh that and click on box. That's super cool. So it does all of those tests. Okay, so we have all of these. I'm just looking at this code real quick. So use media. Okay, so what if I take this one off? Oh, right. That's super cool. So it's showing me here, at least it looks like it's showing me all of the values. That's really interesting. And their current state. So let me look at this again. So use, so initial state. So query and then the state for that query. Okay, so we're getting a single query. So that's the current value. And then let's see if the component is mounted. Match media query function, if mounted, return set boolean if that matches that the media query. Interesting. Okay, that's super cool. What is the let's see, what's the exercise? Oh, so we did the exercise. What's the extra credit? Okay, use the format function. Use debug value also takes a second argument, which is an optional formatter function, allowing you to do stuff like this if you like. So use debug value. It takes this stuff and it returns that. So use count. Okay, gotcha. So this is just the format count debug value, and we're able to pass that in. Okay. This is only really useful for situations where you're computing the debug value. Computing the debug value is computationally expensive, and therefore you want it to calculate when the dev tools are open and not when users are using the app. In our case, this is not necessary. However, go ahead and give it a try. Okay, so I think the idea is that we can pull this out into a function. So we're going to delete that. Format query debug value function, format query debug value, and then that's going to return this. Of course, it needs a query and a state. I'm going to do this slightly different just so I fully understand it. So he's sending in a whole object like this, but I want to make sure that I get this. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I think it does need to be an object. Because it's probably just assuming that this is the second argument, which makes sense. So, okay, we're going to change that. And now we're going to pass in query and state. Save that. Go to our isolated view, check out our box, and that seemed to work. Let me put an exclamation point just to be sure. Yes. Okay, cool. I did. Awesome. Cool. Let's just be sure that it's not like using the last of the args. And you know, we can pass in things like this. I assume that this is going to break. Oh yeah. Yep. It's not getting that state. It's just getting the query. Okay, cool. So objects, got to use objects. No problem. Okay. So I think that's it. I think we did it. I think we got through all of this. That was intense. That was a lot. If you're still here, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate you going through this with me. Yeah, sharing the links, sharing your experiences. This is good. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think this is good. I think we got that going. We know some places that we need to make some updates, which is great. Let's close that. Close this. And yeah, let's see what is next on the React adventure. Oh shoot, I'm gonna have to go into a different browser to find this. Go into Arc. And see what's next. So we have React hooks. We've done advanced React hooks now. And so now, next is going to be advanced React patterns. So I might as well clone that while I'm here. So get that, copy. We're going to do this. Git clone. Advanced React patterns. This is going to be a fun one. I do like this. I think we'll probably end up covering a lot of the stuff, like, you know, we like Small Gaming, that you shared that link of, you know, creating you know, context and reducers and all that kind of stuff. I think now that we have all of the like raw tools, we'll probably get into some of that cool stuff. And yeah, excited. Okay, cool. I think that's it. And yeah, just about an hour and a half, which is great. Yeah. So thanks so much for hanging out. If you want to kind of be notified, you can follow me on Twitch or on my YouTube channel. And then as I make other videos, you know, if you want to see those, I'd recommend YouTube. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for hanging out today. You're awesome. I appreciate hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time. I think I'll try to do some of this tomorrow, but you know, we'll see. All right. Advanced for the win. Yes, let's go. Okay, cool. See y'all later. Thanks for hanging out with me. See you next time. Bye.